Yo, 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 what's good, everybody? Welcome to another broadcast, another Breaking Conservatarian broadcast with your favorite conservatarian, Jeff Charles, where we prefer truth over narrative and principles over personalities. Hope everybody's doing well. Got some really cool stuff to talk about today. Let me turn that down a little bit. Got some cool stuff to talk about today and some not so cool stuff to talk about today. So I think it'll be a very instructive conversation. I think it'll be good for all of us. Let me scoot over here so you can see me. All right. How's everybody doing tonight? What's up, France Charles? You're always the first. You're always the first one. You've got my sister Felicia Killings on Periscope. What's going on? Invisible Black Elephants. Not much, man. Not much. Hope you guys are doing all right. I'm going to let some more people come in here. And I'm going to go ahead and share this thing. If I can remember how to do it. Okay, yeah, there we go. Let's see. Yeah, I know what to do. All right. Yeah, but let me know you're live in the chat. Let me know what's going on with you. It is Monday. It is so Monday right now. Hope you guys like the music. Figured it'd create a cool ambiance to this whole thing. All right. Move this. Okay. What's up, Miki? I'm glad you're able to catch us live today too. Glad to have you. Big Paul, what's good? What's good? Let's see. And thanks for sharing it, Big Paul. Actually, if everybody could share this, I would really appreciate it. And also subscribe if you haven't already. All right. Wake up, people. 17. How you doing? How you doing? Let's see. Endgame. You're good. Is that Avengers Endgame, or is that a different reference that I'm not getting? Let's see. Bobby O. Just more stupid lawyers. I'm sorry. I don't know what that means. I don't know if you're dealing with a lot of lawyers or what, but I don't envy you on that. Hey, Curtis. What's going on, bro? Glad you could join us. The blue collar intellectual. Mr. Julian, Brother Julian. All right. Just about ready to get started. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. We'll let people get in. Okay, Felicia, really, you got to decide. Are you going to join us on Periscope or YouTube or both? What's going on here? Are you just going to jump back and forth? Is that what we're doing today? Just a huge Avengers fan. Yep. Me too. You know, especially as a Marvel guy. If you're a DC guy, then I don't know what to tell you. Just don't let me know, because then I'll have to block and report you. Oh man, it feels like this month is going by really fast to me. I don't know if anybody else is feeling that way, but it seems like every day just goes by really quickly lately. Let's see. All right. Big Paul with the Marvel. Yes, y'all. All right. I'm going to take a little sippy sip. And then we can get started. Okay. So first thing I want to say is that I appreciate everybody who's been sharing my content and everybody who has subscribed. I'm over halfway to my goal, and I'm getting there quicker than I expected. So that's because of you guys, and I really, really, really appreciate it. I mean, once I'm able to monetize this, I can do more of these videos. I can write more. I can do a lot more. So I'm getting there. We're getting there. So I think it'll be awesome when it finally happens. Let's see. Now, I do have some things to get into. I mean, I'm sure you already saw the show notes, what I'm going to be talking about. Black empowerment versus Democrat empowerment, the upcoming impeachment circus. Happy Impeachment Eve, everybody. Happy Impeachment Eve. This is going to be wonderful. And then I'm going to talk about why white liberal, especially, I'm sorry to say this, but white liberal women are the worst. So, but before I do that, I want to kind of talk about something that might be a little bit interesting to you guys, especially when it concerns echo chambers. And you hear a lot of people complain about the existence of echo chambers. People on the left are in their bubble. They don't really know how people on the right think, and they misconstrue our arguments. They misconstrue our intentions, and vice versa. We do the same thing on the right. We don't always quite understand where the other side is coming from. And especially when it comes to the media, and the media is one of the biggest culprits in this problem, but a lot of it has more to do with us because we're the ones who control what media we consume, but we choose to only read sources that agree with our point of view. Now, the cool thing about this thing, some of you have probably already heard of this, but I'm going to bring it up right now. Let me stop that. And this is a site called Ground News. Where'd it go? So why is it not? Oh, there it is. Okay. So Ground News. Where'd you go, buddy? I got a different screen. Huh. Hold on. Having some technical issues. That's fine. We'll just do it this way. Oh, actually, I think I know why it's doing it. 1 second. Share screen, Chrome tab, bam. What's up, Chocolate Princess? Am I going to remember you when I go big time? Of course I will. How could I forget? And I mean that in a good way. So, Ground News. Actually, let's just do the full screen here so you guys can see. And then I'm just going to remove that real quick. So this is a site, again, it's ground.news.com. This is on a particular article. I'm going to their homepage. Now, the cool thing about this site, and it seems like it's starting to grow, so hopefully it continues. But the cool thing about it is that it helps you get out of your echo chamber by having one story. So let's just pick one. Just make it easy. That sounds boring. Yeah, let's do this one. Georgia election officials formally launch investigation into Trump phone calls. So naturally, multiple news outlets would be covering the story. So you would just click on it, and then right here, it'll show you, it'll give you kind of the headline. But right here, you can see the different news outlets that are covering this, and they categorize each news outlet based on their leaning. So if it leans to the left, then it'll be more over here. If it leans to the right, it's more over here. If it's more centrist, it's more here. I don't agree with all their categorizations, but for the most part, like 90% of it is on point. So like, for instance, and it even breaks it down by far left, lean left, center, lean right, and far right, like where you have your gateway pundit, which I never bother with. As a matter of fact, I don't do any of the far left or the far right, because that tends to be a lot of disinformation. But let's say if you want to see the story and you want to see it from the left point of view, so let's say something on that is solidly on the left, you'd have CNN. So you bring that up, and then if you want to go to the article, you just click on read more, and then you can read the CNN article and get their take on it. Also, if you scroll down, it'll give you the headlines from each different outlet. So it goes from far left, and then you scroll all the way down, and then you're starting getting more into leaning left, like The Guardian, Independent, New York Times. Then you get more into the center, and it has the C next to it for center, which is Reuters, which that's pretty accurate. Reuters, I think, leans slightly to the left, but for the most part, it's pretty much to the center. So you got Reuters, CNBC, and then you've got a local one there. Well, this is in Canada for some reason, whatever. And then you got The Hill, which I actually use a lot to source my commentary, Associated Press. And then as you keep going, you get down to, out of the center, you get down to Washington Times, which leans to the right. I use that a lot too. National Post, I don't really use them all that often, but decent site. Never heard of My Northwest. That's probably a local affiliate. Then you got the Jerusalem Post all the way down to Washington Examiner, Newsmax, Breitbart, and then to Gateway Pundit, if you're into that sort of thing. So this one helps me quite a bit because when I write my articles, obviously I come from a conservative bent, but I do like to use more centrist and left-leaning sources as well, just to kind of acknowledge their side of it. Especially if I'm going to debunk their side of it, then I need to have their articles as well. So some articles are more simple, and I might just use just one source, just depending, because I'm not really reporting it. I'm just providing commentary on the story. That's mostly what I do. I do commentary. But it does help to have the other side as well. So I would highly recommend checking this out. I should put the link in the show notes. I'll do that after. But it's a really good tool, and it doesn't have every single story, but if there's a hot story breaking, you can be rest assured that it's going to be on the site. Also, if you get their Chrome extension, you can't see, but if you use Google Chrome, you can get the Ground News extension. And if you're just browsing through a site, like say you're already on CNN and you see a story, it will have a little drop down thing that shows you, oh, this is covered mostly from the left or mostly from the right or whatever, and it'll kind of give you the percentage. And you click on that, and it'll take you to Ground News, and you can look through and see which ones you want to look at. So I would highly recommend using this again, because all of us on every side needs to get out of our comfort zones. We need to be able to get out of our echo chambers and honestly be willing to experience the cognitive dissonance coming from a source that disagrees with you. It doesn't mean you got to be converted to the left or to the right or whatever. It just means you're able to get a different point of view. And the founder, I can't remember her name, but she was actually on Bridget Fettisy's podcast. And she was talking about why she started it, because she saw early on the problem with people just being in echo chambers and not really researching an issue. So if you only read the news from one point of view, you're not getting the full story. I mean, because they all have agendas. And even if they're more objective news outlets, they're going to leave out certain information that might counteract their bias. So you always want to at least check, at least maybe just one other source that's on the left or on the right, or whatever your opposing view is, and see, just to try to get more of the full story. So I just wanted to share that with you. Let me bring myself back here. I'm going to remove that. And we can actually start talking about the news. So first up, if you saw me on Twitter today, I was talking about this a little bit. I wasn't on Twitter as much today as I normally am, but the riots are still in the news, of course, and especially with the lead up to impeachment. I mean, that's what the left is. That's what the Democrats are predicating their whole case on, the idea that President Trump incited the riots. But this is a subject that you've seen me talk about quite a bit. You've seen Felicia talk about it. You've seen others, especially in the Hotep community. I mean, they talk about this stuff all the time. And it is an issue. And I want to talk about the issue of Black empowerment versus Democrat empowerment. Now, I'm only talking about the world of government and politics. I'm not necessarily talking outside of that. I mean, because Black empowerment can be a lot of different things, but I'm talking about specifically about the political scene. And I also want to kind of relate it to the conservative movement and how it should respond to this reality. Now, what I'm going to talk about, the people I'm going to talk about would never admit to what I'm saying. They would never admit that what I'm saying is true, but their actions show it. You can judge it by what they get angriest at, or what they're most concerned about. And when I talk about this dichotomy, I'm talking about, there's Black empowerment, like people who want the Black community to have more power in government. Now, for a lot of people, that means having representation on both sides, which is something that we're working towards. But it also means just being listened to by your officials, whether it's at the local level, or at the state level, or at the federal level. And so you have Black people who are mostly Democrats, right? And they 90% vote for Democrats. And you have certain types of Black folks who will say that they're concerned with promoting Black empowerment, or you'll see them virtue signaling about white supremacy and talking about how horrible white supremacy is. And while a lot of them, I think most of them are sincere to a certain degree, when you press them on it, or when it comes to a subject that they don't want, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. When it comes to Democrats, they're less likely to push back on them. They'll push back on conservatives at the drop of a hat, no matter what. I mean, if President Trump cuts a wet fart, they're going to be like, "Oh, that was racist." So the thing is that when you have empowerment in government, that requires one to be willing to hold their leaders accountable. But the problem is that with these specific types of folks, they don't want to do that if it's a Democrat. So obviously, I mean, if there's a Republican that promotes a policy that they believe negatively impacts the Black community, they're going to call that out quick. But if the Democrats do it, then it's a different story. What I'm saying does not apply to all Black people. I think there are plenty of Black people, probably even most, who'd be willing to say, that person, what they did was wrong or whatever, and it's a Democrat. Here's an example. Remember when Biden made the comments, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't Black"? Now, we already know what would happen if a conservative had said it, if Trump had said it, or if Rand Paul had said it. They would lose their minds. They would get their panties all in a bunch. But you saw a lot of them being really, really silent when Biden said something sideways like that. Those people are most likely more concerned about Democrat empowerment than Black empowerment. They should take offense at that, even if it comes from their own side. Now, I did see a lot of Black people saying that he was wrong. I can respect somebody who says, "You know what, that was a racist thing to say. I'm still going to vote for him because I think he's better than Trump, but I'm not going to let that go by without saying something about it." But then you have the others. If I bring it up, or if somebody else brings it up, then now you run into a problem. And I ran into a problem with a lot of the people on the left who followed me, who either would claim to be independents or claim to be Democrat, but they're open to hearing from conservatives. Once Biden was elected and I started criticizing him, they had a total breakdown. And they came up with all kinds of excuses. "Oh, it's too early. Oh, he just started." Well, but you were doing that with Trump too when he just first started. So that's not an excuse. I can criticize Biden no matter what. I don't care if it's right before he started or whatnot. So a lot of them were saying, "Oh, you're trying to be like Candace Owens," whatever. Like total cognitive dissonance. And you can always tell cognitive dissonance when the person can't make a coherent argument. They just resort to things like, "Oh, you're trying to be like Brandon Tatum," or whatever. Like you're either dealing with somebody who's just not very bright, or somebody who was rubbed the wrong way because you're attacking their guy and they don't know how to deal with it. Like they get married to, and this happens on both sides. They get married to a politician, or they get married to a political party, so that if you attack it, it's almost like you're attacking them. So the example that's come up lately has to do with the riots at the Capitol, in comparison to what happened with the Antifa / Black Lives Matter riots last summer. Now, I'm seeing a lot of Black people who vote Democrat claim that the one at the Capitol was worse than the riots that happened over last summer. Now, I disagree, and there's a lot of reasons why I disagree, and I'm going to go over those. But basically, the riots over the last summer, who was pushing these? I mean, it was Democrats. It was people who leaned towards the left. You didn't have a whole lot of Democratic politicians willing to call this stuff out. There was very few. And when it came to the movement, I mean, you had a few Black Lives Matter chapters and a few leaders who were willing to say, "We condemn this violence. We need to protest peacefully." And I can respect that. But you did have a lot of them, promoting these violent protests. You had Kamala Harris promoting an organization that bails these people out when they get arrested. And the list goes on and on. I mean, people were quoting Martin Luther King saying, "Oh, riots are the are the voice of the unheard, which I get what he was saying with that, but I don't think that he was justifying people killing people and destroying property for that cause. As a matter of fact, he advocated against that. His movement was about the opposite of that. So the thing is that the riots over the last summer, about 20 to 25 people were killed, the majority of which were Black. Then you've got the riots at the Capitol. Now, the left keeps saying that 5 people died because of the riots. That's a lie. It was actually 3 that we know of. 2 of them died from natural, or not natural causes, but they died from medical issues that had nothing to do with the riots. They weren't even there. They were just at the rally. So they try to lump them in to kind of inflate the number. Now, the police officer that died, we're finding out now that the investigators aren't even sure that he was murdered. At first, they were saying he got hit by a fire extinguisher. That was the story. But now they're realizing that they don't really have evidence of that. So they don't really know how he died yet. Either way, I think it makes sense to assume that he died because of the riots, even if it was on accident. Like at this point, he may not have been killed on purpose, but something happened to him at the riots. And then, of course, you had the woman who was shot by a police officer, and then one person who was trampled to death. Again, another accident. Tragic, horrible. Shouldn't have happened. I've said many times that the people who participated in that riot deserve to be thrown in jail, and they've been arresting people for it. And you run into this issue where the majority of people that were there weren't even there to do violence. A lot of them were just sightseeing. They were in there taking selfies. And then there were the ones who were pushing back against the police. So that's bad. Assault on the Capitol, bad. But when you compare it to, especially coming from the perspective of a Black person, when you're looking at what happened over the past summer, you saw between $1 to $2 billion in damage. Now, this wasn't all to Black communities, but Black businesses were destroyed. And I'll be playing some footage of somebody talking about it. But that hurts, those riots hurt far more people, not just taking their lives, but destroying their livelihoods, diminishing their communities. Because I'll show you in a second that riots of that nature, they don't just have damage right then. They cause ongoing damage over years, over decades. Like the LA riots, that had a long-lasting economic impact on the Black community. So these people think I'm supposed to care more about what happened at the Capitol when what happened last year caused far more damage. They want to imply that these Black lives that were snuffed out were not quite as big a deal as those killed at the Capitol. Now, most people, I think, with a level of common sense would assume that the incident that killed more people and caused more damage would be considered to be worse. But this changes. Common sense doesn't exist. It goes out the window when toxic partisanship comes into play. If Black Lives Matter had stormed the Capitol and let's say 3 people got killed, they would not be condemning it really at all. So, you might get some that might say, oh, well, that wasn't right, but they were doing it because they weren't being heard. Nobody was hearing what they had to say. And they may even be right about that part of it, but that doesn't make the action any less wrong. Now, I've been asking people over and over again, especially Black people on Black Twitter, why they believe that the riots at the Capitol were worse than the entire summer of riots last year. And the answer, you can already know what it is, right? Is but Trump, though. It's because it involved Trump. Now, most of these people are pretending that he incited the violence. But even the ones who aren't, they basically, it just comes down to it involved Trump supporters, therefore it's worse. None of these people can tell me what Trump said to incite the violence. And I'll deal with that later. But that's really the reason why they believe these riots are worse. I mean, to me, it's almost like, and I will be posing this question to them. If you could choose between one that had to happen and erase the other, which would you choose? If you choose that you would rather for Black businesses to get destroyed and 20 to 25 Black lives being lost, and you would choose to have that rather than what happened at the Capitol, that's toxic partisanship. That is, because the two are objectively different. What happened last summer is objectively worse for the Black community, for the nation, than what happened at the Capitol. So I want to go to an article here. It's written by Brad Palumbo, great guy. He writes for the Washington Examiner. He writes for a site called Fee. He writes for a few different sites. Great guy. Shout out to Brad Palumbo. Let me grab this really quick. And I want, there it is. Okay. Chrome tab. Okay, so he wrote an article. And let's do this. Let's do that. And it's titled, "Here are just 10 of the many minority-owned businesses destroyed in the riots." And he goes through, and I would definitely recommend that you read this. I mean, he wrote this last summer, and I'll go ahead and put the link in the show notes as well. But he only lists 15, but there are far more than this. I mean, if you were to list every single one, we would be here for a while. I mean, in Kenosha alone during those riots, over 56 small businesses were destroyed. So you got one here in Austin. I remember that one. And you got the list here. But here's where he makes a very interesting point. Let me scroll down here. Okay. So in the case of these riots, the direct costs and economic disadvantages will likely be borne disproportionately by minorities. And this comes at a time when minority-owned small businesses can least afford it, having suffered extensively under COVID-19 lockdowns. Vandalism in heavily urban minority communities will cause insurance rates to rise and property values to drop. This is not speculation. It is exactly what happened in the aftermath of similar rioting in the late 1960s. A 2005 study found negative, persistent, and economically significant effects of riots on the value of Black-owned housing to the degree of a 10% decline in the total value of Black-owned property in cities. So like I said, riots don't just harm the community right at that moment. It takes decades to get over that. And like he points out, especially with the COVID-19 lockdowns, you already have Black businesses that are suffering hardships. And, a lot of the excuses, oh, well, it's just property, right? I mean, they all have insurance. No, 40% of small businesses do not have any business insurance. Now, this isn't because these business owners are stupid or because they're lazy. They might not be able to afford it, or maybe they had insurance at one time and lost it. But even if they did have insurance, their rates are going to go up if they have to use it. So you can see how these riots are more to the detriment of the Black community than anybody else. So I'm going to share a quick video of a Black business owner talking about this. Let me bring that up. Here it comes.
Tomorrow, restaurants and bars in Minnesota are supposed to start reopening for outdoor service only. Unfortunately, some small business owners in Minneapolis are now facing a different reality after having their businesses vandalized and burnt down. Corboy Bala was getting ready for the grand opening of his sports bar in March when COVID-19 brought the country to a halt. And just as he was planning for a phased reopening, the building was burnt down this week amidst the protests. Corboy, thank you so much for joining us right now. You are a member of this community. You are a firefighter, a father, and you've invested your life savings into this bar. I do want to be very frank with you. When we talked to our producers today and our booking team, you were the only person I really wanted to talk to tonight, because I wanted to hear from a business owner who, first of all, lost so much with COVID-19 and now has pretty much lost everything because of some of this violence. Where is your mind at tonight?
Well, thanks for having me. Good for to be on right now. It's been kind of surreal what have happened. It was a long process just getting where I was as far as with the business, and to just see it go away in a split of a day was kind of crazy. So it still feels like a dream, actually.
Do you have insurance?
No, I didn't have insurance at the time when it happened.
So have you lost everything?
Yep, I did lose everything. Because when I first signed my lease to the property back in November, I did have insurance. And then due to COVID-19, we didn't know when it was going to open. Speaking to my insurance agent, he told me to just kind of suspend it and just put it on, a week or two before we could open. So I didn't have insurance when the building was burned down a couple of days ago.
We're seeing the photos you sent us of the coming soon sign, and then the windows broken and the sign going down. We've seen the images of your hometown, burnt out buildings, graffiti. What would you say to the people who did this to your business?
I can actually feel the pain. Like I said before, I'm not trying to take anything away from Mr. Floyd death. I was out here protesting. I was out there today protesting. So I'm still against what happened. But just when you taking away from like a small business owner like me and myself and a couple of small business owners out here, that's the part that's helpful. Hurtful. Because we worked so hard to get the stuff that we got, and we're still trying to survive. And then even going through the COVID-19, that's like almost 3 months of no income, especially for all like the bars and the restaurants and stuff like that. So it's already hard coming to this time, and then now to just have everything taken away, most of us going to be struggling. And most bars and restaurants are already struggling. They know if they're going to reopen or not prior to this.
And so what is your next move now?
I figure I was just going to kind of sit back for a little bit and just kind of come up with a better idea, better plans on what we're going to do next. My thing was just trying to get back in the community, try to help however way I can to clean up, donate, help whoever that needs help right now, just to kind of get back to some kind of, just to do something to give back. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay, and just last question. I sort of want to ask this again. If you could talk to any of the people who walked into your business and set that place on fire, what would you tell them?
I'll tell them to put themselves in our shoes. This could be one of your family members. This could be your mom, your dad, your uncle, your brother or sister. This could be one of your family members that had their own business that was burned down to the ground. So, you should probably think twice. I get the pain. I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to take that away from anybody. I get the pain. We were out here protesting. But my personal opinion, I feel like it's different between protesting and riot. So we can protest. I was out here with my kids protesting, letting them know what's going on. So I think it's different between the protesting and the riots and, destroying property. So.
Yeah, so that was pretty much the end of the video there. But this guy lost everything. He has kids, probably even agrees with the Black Lives Matter movement. I bet if I talked to this guy, we probably would have some political disagreements. But they destroyed his business. They destroyed his livelihood, what he uses to feed his family. And I'm supposed to care more about people taking selfies in the Capitol than somebody like this guy. I'm glad he's alive because a lot of people were killed. But I'm not supposed to care about them as much as I care about what happened at the Capitol. Now, I understand that the Capitol is supposed to be the people's house. It symbolizes, our government. And I kind of understand where that's coming from a little bit. I said a while ago that a lot of leftists care more about the Capitol riots because it was an attack on the government, and they value the government more than they value Black businesses. There's really no other way for me to read that. Both are wrong. Both are horrible. Like I said, people who participated in both riots need to be thrown in jail. They need to go to prison. They need to be punished. I don't have any grace for any of that. But the notion that I'm supposed to be more upset about what happened at the Capitol than what's happened to Black communities who are trying to come up, it's absurd. But the problem is that they will defend these people, or they may not vocally defend them. They may just kind of sweep it under the rug, or they don't really want to pay attention to it. Or if you bring up the riots, they'll just bring up police brutality, or they'll deflect, just like conservatives deflect from valid conversations about police brutality by using the riots. I saw a lot of conservatives doing that as well. But the bottom line is that either you care about Black empowerment or you don't. If you're willing to see Black businesses being torn down, which is Black empowerment, if you're willing to see Black people getting killed and you're not willing to say a whole heck of a lot about it, then how can you say that you're about Black empowerment? Especially since these cities are run by Democrats. Hold them accountable. Don't go easy on them just because you agree with them politically, or because you think that the other party doesn't care about you, which I can understand why you would think that. If you're a black person, I can understand why you might have the perception that the GOP doesn't care about you. That doesn't mean that you just let the Democrats do whatever the hell they want. I was listening to just a short clip of Teslin Figaro today, and she leans to the left. She's part of the Democrats, but she's not afraid to hold them accountable. She doesn't care what people say about her when she does that. She will criticize Democrats, and I respect the hell out of her for doing it. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that. Well, I did more than touch on it, but still, like I forgot. And so if I tie this into the conservative movement and who we should be dealing with, if we're trying to reach the black community, I think it makes sense to focus more on people who actually are willing to hold the Democrats accountable before we focus on the rest. The people who are just partisans, they care more about party than about the people. But if you find black people, and I think there are a lot of them, there are tons of them who are willing to say that the Democrats do this wrong, or I didn't like when this Democrat did that, or whatever. Those are the people that we need to hone in on, the people who are dissatisfied with the Democratic Party, especially the ones who don't vote. So that's kind of my takeaway as far as being a conservative. I mean, when we get the conservative movement and the Republican Party to a level where they're actually a valid alternative to the Democrats, those are the people who I think we should focus on. So I'm going to move on to the next subject here. Let me check the chats really quick. We're going to talk about impeachment. That's always happy, isn't it? Let's see. Mickey Love, they've shown us for decades they don't care about us. Yeah, exactly. And I've seen a lot of black people who vote Democrats who will say the exact same thing. Let's see. I mean, if you look at, Corey Frazier put out a video a few days ago. I'll be having him on sometime soon to talk about it. But he talked about, he voted for Biden. He voted for Democrats down ticket because he doesn't feel welcome on the right. And that's what I want to talk to him about. But he was making that video trying to hold them accountable. Like, I voted for you and you're not doing jack. Where are you? What are you doing for us? We got you elected. That's what they should be saying. But instead, they're like, oh, well, let's just wait. I mean, it's still too soon, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, come on, dude. No. Let's see. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying here, invisible black elephants. If you have a problem with the government, it makes more sense to tear up the Capitol versus a local community. And both are wrong. Like we said, both are wrong. But here's the thing. You're going to defend the government that you say is oppressing you. I mean, Felicia was bringing this up earlier. Like, you say that the government is a white supremacist government. You're pretending like the people who went into the Capitol are all white supremacists. So you've got white supremacists fighting in each other and destroying each other, and you're whining about it? I mean, come on now. Again, it shows me that these people don't believe what they say. They don't really believe it, because if they did, they'd be like, well, I mean, they're just ruining the Capitol building, which symbolizes a government that oppresses us. So what the hell? The thing is, they don't care about the Capitol. They say they do, but they don't care. I mean, if you're going to call it white supremacists, you can't be mad when something bad happens to it. You're going to defend white supremacy to own Trump. I mean, come on now. All right, so I'm going to keep going here. So impeachment. Let's talk about impeachment. We love impeachment. Let me take that off. Okay, so we're going to talk about impeachment. Now, the impeachment trial to convict former President Trump is scheduled to begin tomorrow. They're going to try to remove him from office when he's already out of office, because everything is stupid, and it's still 2020. I don't care what anybody says. Now, I'm only going to talk a little bit about this. I mean, as the process goes on, there's going to be more to talk about. But I want to talk about the strategies that both sides are going to use. And it's very interesting, because the Democrats have been pushing this impeachment, but I think that they might even be at a point to where they realize that this may not work out in their favor. I mean, I'm sure they know they're going to lose, but it may even damage them politically if they drag the nation through another impeachment circus, another fiasco that ends up with nothing. I think they're starting to realize that, because in the preliminary negotiations between Mitch McConnell and Senator Chuck Schumer, they were, they're determining the rules, and that'll actually happen tomorrow. But they're setting it up to where this whole trial just takes about a week. They're going to have this wrapped up in a week, whereas in the first impeachment effort, that took about 20 to 30 days, if I'm remembering correctly. So they're going to speed through this pretty quickly. And it seems like they may have learned from some of their mistakes, according to articles that I read, especially in the New York Times. Now, here's the interesting thing. Both sides plan to rely heavily on video footage to support their cases. So the Democrats actually are planning to play on outrage and emotion to try to persuade their colleagues to vote to convict. According to the New York Times, the Democrats are going to, quote, forego distracting witness fights and rely on video. They're going to use fewer long-winded arguments and try to let the footage speak for itself. So they don't want to risk boring people to death like they did during the first one, and rather just say, hey, look at this video. Here's what Trump said. Now, I don't know what kind of footage they're going to use yet. I don't think that has been released. But I have a feeling that I know what Trump's side is going to use, because they're also going to focus on video footage. They're going to be, my guess is that they're going to showcase Democrat lawmakers who have used politically charged rhetoric without anybody complaining about it, or without them being punished or impeached. Just to give you an example of that, and if what I think is going to happen is going to happen, it's clever as hell. But let me just play this real quick.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
All right. So I have a feeling that some of these videos are going to show up in the impeachment trial. And what's funny about Mad Max is that she actually denied inciting violence on MSNBC the other day, yesterday. So, and here's the thing. I agree. I don't blame her for violence. I don't blame Trump for what happened at the riot. I don't blame Bernie Sanders for the attempted assassination of GOP lawmakers in 2018. Even though the guy who was shooting was saying this is for healthcare and was shouting various things that Bernie Sanders said, I don't blame Bernie Sanders. However, if I'm going to hold them to the same principle that they're holding Trump to and what they're holding conservatives to, yeah, Maxine Waters incited violence. Yeah, they all incited violence. So any sensible person can see that this is ridiculous, but they're going to push for impeachment anyway. Now they're going to lose. Like we had an indicator of that a couple weeks ago when Rand Paul objected to even having the trial proceed, and the vote turned out to be that 45 senators voted to declare this impeachment unconstitutional because Trump is already out of office, and impeachment was intended as a tool to remove someone from office. So it is highly unlikely that any of those senators who don't think that the proceedings are constitutional in the first place are actually going to vote to impeach Trump. So there are some on the left. I talked about this on Jesse Kelly's show earlier today, but there are some on the left, some senators who knew this, like Senator Tim Kaine. If you remember him, he was Hillary Clinton's running mate. He's trying to look more to have Trump censured by the Senate, because that would be easier to get. It wouldn't really mean anything. It might even still fail, but they have a much better chance of censoring President Trump than impeaching him. But they're going to push through with it anyway. It's going to be wrapped up within about a week or so, and it's going to be a huge fail on their part. So, I mean, if they want to do it, great. I think that, I mean, I've seen polls saying that most of the country wants conviction and most of the country doesn't want conviction. I mean, it depends on the poll that you're looking at. But either way, you're going to piss off half the country. And realistically, everyday people, even I would suspect that even people who might think that he deserves to be convicted don't want to be dragged through another impeachment spectacle. So all in all, this isn't going to hurt us. It's going to hurt them. I mean, and this is part of that overreach that the left is engaging in, because they're cocky. I mean, they've got the presidency, they've got both chambers of Congress. So it seems like they're feeling themselves a little bit, and they're feeling like they're invincible. I don't think that's true. I think they're going to regret this in 2022. So that's all I want to say about impeachment. We'll be talking about that more as the proceedings continue. I'm sure we'll have a delightful time. But the last thing I want to talk about is why white liberal women are the absolute worst. Now, I'm not talking about all white liberal women. I mean, I come from Southern California and I live in Austin, Texas. I've met plenty of white liberal women who are lovely people. But when you get somebody like this lady, Virginia Heffernan, it kind of makes you wonder about the rest of them. And I would probably suspect that she's more than just a liberal. She's a full-on leftist. So I want to pull up the article, and I actually wrote about this, but I want to go over this article that she wrote for the Los Angeles Times. And it's very not enlightening, because I mean, nobody's going to be surprised that a leftist would write something like this, but it kind of demonstrates the situation that we're in, especially since everybody is in echo chambers, but you also have people in a position where they can influence people, and they're using their platform to encourage their audience to view people on the other side as evil. They're using it to demonize people. It's irresponsible. I don't like seeing this stuff on either side. But I'm seeing it more on the left, especially lately. So let me pull that up right quick. Let's see. Okay. Here it comes. Yada, 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 yada. Where did it go? LA Times. Ah, there it is. Okay. Why isn't it adding it? Yep, there we go. Get myself out of there. Get rid of this. So, what can you do about the Trumpites next door? By Virginia Heffernan. I'll skip that part. But basically, here she goes. The Trumpites next door to our pandemic getaway, who seem as devoted to the wait a minute. Let me back up. I didn't catch this at first. The Trumpites next door to our pandemic getaway. So this person is affluent, who seem as devoted to the ex-president as you can get without being Q fans, just plowed our driveway without being asked and did a great job. How am I going to resist demands for unity in the face of this act of aggressive niceness? Of course, on some level, I realize I owe them thanks, and man, it really looks like the guy backdragged the driveway like a pro. But how much thanks? These neighbors are staunch partisans of blue lives, and there aren't a lot of anything other than white lives in the neighborhood. That is a really horribly written sentence. But basically, she's saying, oh, well, this is a neighborhood full of white folks, and these people like blue lives. They don't hate police. So this becomes important in just a second. There aren't a lot of anything other than white lives in the neighborhood. This is also kind of weird. Back in the city, people don't sweep other people's walkways for nothing. And then, I mean, she kind of endeared herself to me a little bit by bringing up this Eddie Murphy sketch from Saturday Night Live, White Like Me. I'm sure some of you remember that. I remember it from when I was a kid. And maybe it's like what Eddie Murphy discovered in that old Saturday Night Live sketch, White Like Me. He goes undercover in white makeup and finds that when white people are among their own, they pop free champagne and live the high life. As Murphy puts it, slowly I begin to realize that when white people are alone, they give things to each other for free. This is where she goes off the deep end. She then goes to Hezbollah. Hezbollah, the Shiite Islamist political party in Lebanon, also gives things away for free. The favors Hezbollah does for people in the cities Tyre and Sidon probably don't involve snowplows, but like other mafias, Hezbollah tends to its own, the Shiite, sick, elderly, and hungry. They offer protection and hospitality and win loyalty that way, and they also demand devotion to their brutal us versus them anti-Sunni cause. Some of us are family, the favors say, the rest are infidels. Now, she is trying to play on her audience's ignorance. The Hezbollah is not the mafia. The Hezbollah is a radical extremist terrorist organization that serves as a military arm for Iran. They're Iranian-backed. They've been around for decades. They've killed tons and tons of people. They've tortured tons and tons of people, and they have helped to spread to make Iran more powerful. So as if that wasn't bad enough, she continues. The same is true. Oh, well, yeah, the same is true with Louis Farrakhan, who currently helms the Nation of Islam. I'm going to skip that part. It's not that important. What I really wanted to get to was this. You might end up like the upper middle class family I stayed with in France as a teenager. They did not attend a citywide celebration for the 100th birthday of Charles de Gaulle, the war hero who orchestrated the liberation of his country from Nazi Germany in 1944. They did have several portraits of Philippe Pétain, Nazi collaborator, on their wall. When I screwed up the courage to ask how it was for them during the occupation, the lady of the house replied, "We were happy because the Nazis were very poli." I did not know the word, so I excused myself to consult a French-English dictionary. I was in tears when I found the entry polite. So this family said that they had this guy's portrait in their house because even though he was a Nazi collaborator, because the Nazis were very polite to them. So she's already likening white Trump supporters or conservatives to Hezbollah and, of course, Nazis. How original, right? I mean, bringing Nazi comparisons. So now she's in a fix here. She's vexed by what to do with this because how can Nazis and Hezbollah extremists be so nice? So when I accept generosity from my pandemic neighbors, acknowledging the legitimate kindness with a wave or a plate of cookies, am I also sealing us in as fellow travelers who are very poli to each other, but not so much to them? So this is where she's pretending that she cares about Black people and brown people. This is a problem that white liberal women have. They really think that they're standing up for us. They're trying to safeguard our lives as they sip their pumpkin spice lattes. They pretend to care so much about the Black community and all the horrible things that white supremacy has done to them. So much so that they virtue signal by slamming other white people. They love it. I'm sure you guys have seen that meme where it's Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones, and she's being lifted up by all these brown people. And it says, this is how white liberals see themselves when they complain about other white people online. Yeah, that's Virginia Heffernan right there. She is the perfect example. I might even start calling her Karen because she seems like the Karen type too. But this is what they kind of get off on this. They get off on being superior to other white people. They also think they're superior to us as Black people and brown people, but they would never admit that. They probably don't even realize that they are. So let's continue. Loving your neighbor is evidently much easier when your neighborhood is full of people just like you. What do we do about the Trumpites around us, like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who spoke eloquently this week about her terrifying experience during the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th? Americans are expected to forgive and forget before we've even stitched up our wounds. What wounds? Or gotten our vaccines against the pandemic that former President Trump utterly failed to mitigate. My neighbor supported a man who showed near murderous contempt for the majority of Americans. They kept him in business with their support. Now, this is kind of where I'm like, okay, I know that she doesn't really believe this shit because here's the thing. I know people push back on me on this stuff because I don't believe that a lot of these folks actually believe the things that they say. I give them too much credit. I think that they're too intelligent to actually believe this stuff. I think it's worse. I think they're lying their asses off. She's deceiving her audience into believing that she somehow thinks that these people are showed support for a man who had a near murderous contempt for the majority of Americans. But the plowing. On January 6th, after the insurrection, Senator Ben Sasse issued an aw shucks plea for all Americans to love their neighbors. The United States, he said, isn't Hatfield's and McCoy's, this blood feud forever. Basically, Ben Sasse was saying, can't we all just get along? Can't we come to some common ground? And I agree with that, even though I don't always agree with Ben Sasse on certain things. And she says, at the time I see the Capitol had just been desecrated, but maybe my neighbor heard Sasse and was determined to make a bid for reconciliation. So here's my response to my plow driveway for now. Politely, but not profusely, I'll acknowledge the Sassian move. With a wave and a thanks, a minimal start on building back trust. I'm not ready to knock on the door with a covered dish yet. I also can't give my neighbors absolution. It's not mine to give, like they really give a crap. My free driveway work, as nice as it is just not the same currency as justice and truth. To pretend it is would be a lie, and they probably aren't looking for absolution anyway. Hey, all right, she gets it. They don't give a shit about what she thinks. But I can offer a standing invitation to make amends. For what? Not with a snowplow, but by recognizing the truth about the Trump administration, and more important, by working for justice for all whom the administration harmed. Who? Only when we work shoulder to shoulder to repair the damage of the last 4 years will we even begin to dig out of this storm. So here's the thing. There's a couple points I want to make here. This is like a Dear Diary entry from somebody who is experiencing a high level of cognitive dissonance. The cognitive dissonance comes into play because she's around all these Trump supporters who she thinks are evil, even though she chooses to live next to them anyway, and they're being nice to her. So she had to kind of figure out how to still make them into bad people, right? If they're shoveling her driveway as a favor out of the kindness of their hearts, well, they don't have hearts. So you have to figure out why this is a bad thing. That's why she brought up Hezbollah and the Nazis and talked about how they treated some people nicely, and then kind of try to transfer that onto Trump supporters who are evil to the core, but at least they're nice to some people. And this is part and parcel of the far left and how they view conservatives. Not all of them. And I think the regular rank and file Democrats, they don't feel this way about us. But people like her want them to. Make no mistake, she wrote this piece to influence her audience to believe this way about us. And it's not just the fact that she's trying to influence her audience to hate us, like she's dehumanizing us in a sense, because that's what people like this do. But she's trying to still pretend like she wants a level of unity. But these people have a different level of the word unity than most people do. To them, unity means submission. They want us to do exactly what they want, to make amends and seek absolution for the horrible crime against humanity that we did by voting for President Trump, and I assume other conservative candidates as well. People like her don't want unity. I'm just going to say that straight out. She's lying when she says she wants unity. She could be lying to herself, but she's definitely lying to us. These people do not want unity. They want you to fall in line. They want you to apologize. They want us to all become like the Lincoln Project, except, without all the, pedophilia and grooming young men. But they want us to act like we're contrite for the choices that we made based on what we saw in front of us. And these are the people that we need to watch out for. As a matter of fact, these are the actual people that we're really fighting against. And yeah, people like this exist on the right too, and I'll cover that in a different video. But right now I'm talking about the left, the far left. These people don't want to be your friends. These people are not here to benefit society. They definitely don't care about minorities. So they look down on us just like they accuse white conservatives of doing. So I just wanted to kind of go through that article. It was a really imagine being this person type of article. And by the way, on Twitter, she had to shut down her account because people were blasting her for this stupid article. But I mean, she knows what she's doing, and I'm glad that she got the blowback on it. But it's doubtful that she learned her lesson. She's probably never even sat down and had conversations with actual Trump supporters, like deep conversations about politics, without villainizing them or believing them to be evil. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of go over that with you because it's kind of funny, but it's kind of not. So that's pretty much the last story that I want to go over. But yeah, let me check the chat. Let me know if you have any questions or something that you want me to address. Let's see. Let me scroll back up here. Dang, y'all were chatting up a storm in here. That's cool. I'll go here. Oop, let me scoot back. Movement versus organization. So Ross, I'm assuming you're talking about the difference between Black Lives Matter, the movement, and Black Lives Matter, the organization. And there is a difference. I mean, and I talk about that a lot. I mean, I get a lot of flack from conservatives because there are times where I will defend Black Lives Matter because I think that we need to take a more nuanced view towards them. But you also have the movement and the local chapters, because not all of the local chapters are bad or Marxist or what have you. Let's see. Well, I think, well, maybe wet farts are racist if you think about it. I'm sure somehow we can make that into something that's racist. I can't believe we're talking about wet farts. That's not my fault, though. I'm the one who brought up wet farts. Let's see. Okay, I think this is a great point, Felicia. When tweeting with some beloveds, the sentiment is they want someone to be held accountable for the Capitol raid. To them, that person is Trump. I think that explains a lot of this. They want somebody to blame. But the problem is, what's common sense? What would common sense dictate? You blame the people who actually did it. You call for them to be put in jail and punished by our justice system. You don't try to scapegoat somebody because it helps you politically. Let's see. All right. The left is scared of Trump because if he runs again in 24, he'll probably win. I don't know if he would, though. I mean, first off, I kind of don't think he wants to run again. He might. I mean, I know he likes the attention and all of that. I don't know if he would still have enough political capital to win, especially when he's spending so much time being a kingmaker. I think he still has a part to play. I'll talk about that actually on Wednesday, because we can see the establishment already pushing back against the idea of Trump still having a voice. This is great stuff because it shows that they're scared. But anyway, yeah, I don't know if he would win if he ran again in 2024. But I could be wrong. Let's see. Impeachment has nothing to do with Trump. Dems actually have a good strategy. See, I don't agree. I think they think it's a good strategy, but I don't think that they're saying that people aren't going to appreciate being dragged through this again. People want to move on. The election's over. And even if they, think that he may have had a part in inciting the violence, I don't think that they really want to see all this again, which I think is probably why they're trying to have a shorter proceedings. But again, I could be wrong, but I don't think that this helps them in the long run. But yeah, let's see. Brazil. I've got somebody listening in Brazil. Sweet. Brasilia. Thanks for joining us. What else we got here? I still can't find where Trump told him to bring it to the Capitol. Yeah, stop looking, Mickey. You're not going to find it. He never said anything like that. He told them to go down to the Capitol and make their voices heard peacefully. And here's the thing. I'll say it again. If you're arguing that Trump contributed to the state of our political discourse, the fact that it's so tensed and outraged, and that type of environment led to the riots at the Capitol, as well as the ones last year, I wouldn't disagree with that. He's not the only one by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you had Democrats doing that before Trump was even elected. I mean, calling us Nazis, calling us fascists, all that good stuff. So I think both sides have share a lot of blame in this. I don't think anybody actually incited the violence, though. Let's see. Yeah, the only standards these days are double standards. Now, we used to apply that to the left. We said that without double standards, the left wouldn't have standards at all. But now we're doing it, and we're getting to where we're doing it just as bad as they do. Let's see. Freaking Julian, dude. Really, dude? Really? White liberal women out here making big booty twerking TikToks. Let's just say that those are not the ones I'm complaining about. I'm complaining about the Virginia Heffernans. I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to say anything more. Get myself in trouble. Let's see. Republicans usually overreach too. Now, here's a good point, but we overreach in a different way. Like Democrats overreach in trying to push their agenda. Republicans overreach in responding to the left. We overreach in our overreactions because we're not even reactionaries. We're overreactionaries. So whenever the left does something, we go crazy. So yeah, I mean, you're right about that. It's saying, what's this? Oh, that's interesting. What's the saying? Soft bigotry of low expectations. I don't like that phrase. And here's the reason why. There's only one reason why I don't like it. The word soft. Bigotry is bigotry. The bigotry of low expectations is not soft. It's just as bad as other types of bigotry. I don't like any type of bigotry, and the bigotry of low expectations is a thing, and it's horrible, but it ain't soft. Let's see. Okay, this is interesting. The strategy for Dems, in my opinion, is to, one, get you to deny Trump and lose a bunch of voters, or say that you are condoning what happened on the 6th if you don't vote to. Oh, you're talking about the senators. Okay. Now I could see them thinking that would be successful, and it might be. But the thing is that you're not really going to piss the right people off with that. I mean, if a senator votes against impeaching Trump, they're not going to lose any voters for that. I guarantee it. In most states, they're not going to. I mean, they'll lose votes if they vote the other way. So I think that might be something that the Democrats might think is a good idea, but I don't think it's going to work out that way. I think anybody who votes against impeachment, assuming that they don't do other things that piss off their constituents, they're going to be fine. I mean, as a matter of fact, the 10 representatives who voted to impeach are in trouble. Liz Cheney is in trouble, and some of the others are in trouble too. And guess what? Trump is about to start making some moves. I've been reading the articles. I've been reading between the lines. He hasn't said a whole lot, but people around him have kind of hinted here and there. Trump is about to get going here in just a few minutes. Trump is going to be out here. He's raised $31 million as of January of this year, and he's formed a new super PAC. I think it's called Save America, and they are going to be funding challengers to the 10 representatives that voted for impeachment. So I think that those are the people who are in trouble. I mean, Liz Cheney, her poll numbers have tanked. Don't be fooled by the fact that she wasn't removed from her committee assignments. That doesn't mean anything. That was House Republicans who voted on that. What happens when it's our turn to vote? I mean, the rank and file in Wyoming are not happy with her. And you've got Matt Gaetz out there, campaigning against her. I'm sure there will be others. I think that this is going to backfire on the Democrats in a huge way. Let's see. How can white people help spread the conservative/libertarian message to the Black community? Conversation is shut down unless I apologize for my white privilege, which I won't. I mean, I'd rather tackle that in another live stream where I can actually devote some time to it, but give you just a thumbnail answer. First off, if you're trying to spread a message to the Black community or to a Black person and they're demanding that you apologize for your white privilege, move on to the next Black person, I would say. Those aren't the people that are actually going to want to engage with you. Some will, but I mean, if they're really just demanding that you become woke and condemn your white privilege, you don't even have a starting point from which to build on that during a conversation. You're not going to be able to reach all Black people. I mean, the Republican Party is going to be able to reach all Black people. The Democrats haven't, because I exist. I mean, there are Black people who don't vote Democrat. But I think we need to understand that we're not going to reach all Black people, and we just need to be smart about the ones that we potentially could reach. I think most Black people may believe that white privilege exists. I actually do to a certain degree. I just don't believe in it in the way that the left portrays it. But you're not going to hear Black people just talking about white privilege all the time. I mean, you have some of those, but for the most part, they're not talking about white privilege. They're talking about sports. They're talking about this or that or whatever. So I don't think that white privilege is an issue that would shut down a conversation in most cases. And if it does, then the conversation probably wasn't worth having in the first place. But that's something I really wanted to delve into. Yeah, it's probably going to take me a few different videos to really delve into that. Let's see. Yeah, actually listen to the complaints against the state instead of arguing. Here's the thing is, if somebody's talking about white privilege and you come back with how the state has wronged Black people and you don't pretend like it hasn't, they may not try to hold you to the white privilege thing so much. The thing is, we have to realize that when the GOP actually gets to the point to where they actually want Black votes, they're not going to agree on every single point. I mean, Black people don't agree with the Democrats on everything. So, I mean, you may not agree on white privilege, but if you talk about how, their local governments are letting them down because they create an environment where police can abuse them without being held accountable, they're not going to knock you down for that. They're going to be like, I'm glad you understand that. I mean, as a matter of fact, there's a lot of Black people who I've seen be surprised when a white conservative says, no, I'm with you on that. I agree with you. I don't think those officers should be allowed to do what they do. Let's see. Yeah, this is a really good point. Every complaint against the state is an opportunity to spread conservatism and limited government. This is especially true in the Black community. I think that and I don't care if it's white conservatives or Black conservatives, if they're talking to a Black Democrat and they are honing in with laser-like precision on the wrong things that the government has done to Black people, that's where we're going to start building some trust, because then they can see that we're not like the boomer cons. We don't have the boomer con mentality where we pretend like the government has been evil to everybody except Black people in today's day and age. And we can actually acknowledge that governments are doing things to the Black community, as mass incarceration, war on drugs, what have you. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. I mean, we don't need to the only time a conservative will defend the state is when it comes to Black people. Like it's ridiculous. Once we stop doing that, then people like Corey, who I mentioned earlier, might feel a little bit more welcome on our side, because now they understand that while we may not agree on every single issue, we're not pretending that reality doesn't exist. Let's see. What else we got here? Oh, wait, Corey, you're in here. I didn't even know. I didn't even see you. Using the term "your white privilege" is a real turnoff with Black Democratic voters. All right. Now, do you you mean people are using that towards Black people, or Black people using that towards something else? Clarify that a little bit more if you're still in here. Let's see. Do I have any other questions? Let me know now, because I'm about to sign off. I need to eat dinner. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and leave it there. But thanks again for joining. I really appreciate this. I'm gonna just so you know, I'm going to be doing this every Monday and Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard. Now, if I'm feeling like it, I'll do more per week, but I'm going to at least do Monday and Wednesdays for right now at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard. I really appreciate you guys showing up, especially the ones who stayed until the end. Please, again, share this video. I need to get to my goal, and share. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Really appreciate that. But otherwise, I will see you guys on Wednesday and in the Twitterverse. Have a good night.